What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going to be installing some glow gauges from TEQ Customs on my 2002 Toyota Tacoma. So here's a quick look at the gauges. I still have them in the bag, but when I saw these I knew I had to snag a set because they're like a perfect match for my truck. I have the whole retro stripes down the side from Tacoma vinyl, and then I have the hood stamp and everything from them as well. So I just knew that these gauges were gonna be like the perfect fit for this truck. All right, to get started on this, we do have to pull the whole cluster out. So to start, you have to kind of start over here in this area by pulling off the control knobs for the air conditioning and stuff. Sometimes your little metal sleeves will stay on. I just pull them off to make sure that I don't like lose them. That one came off. And then sometimes I just find it easiest. You don't want to like pry on this super hard, but if you can just get something in there to pry. It is kind of fragile. There you go. Pops right off, set it aside. And then to get this, you will have to pull the ashtray. There's a little thing on top. If you press down, you can pull out. Mine's a little harder to pull out because I have this switch panel right here. Next, you have some screws up in this corner, and then there's one screw up in that corner that you got to take out. So just to be clear, in this corner you have 3 screws, one there, one in the middle, one in the bottom. This middle one is the only one you should have to take out to be able to get the trim piece out. These other 2 are for the control panel here. So after you pull this out, you don't have to unplug anything. You just have to pull it up out of the way so that you can get this trim piece to come out far enough. So that you can just drop this down. You don't actually have to unplug anything, just drop it up out of the way like that. So since you're already here, what's easiest is to turn the wheel and to take that screw out, and then you'll have to turn the wheel this other way and take that screw out so that you can get this plastic cover out of the way. Okay, so now that we have this screw and the other screw out, this cover just separates. Sometimes it helps to have a little plastic removal tool to be able to get into the crack and separate them. For this next part, you're going to get your 10mm socket or ratchet wrench, whatever you have, and you're just going to take these bolts out. Okay, so you will have a 10mm bolt there, one down here, and one up there, and then you'll just have a little screw right there. And after you get those taken out, you'll be able to drop this panel down. Being stubborn, it'll come out, and then you just see, just like that, and then you'll just drop this panel down like so. You just kind of give it a little tug, and then you can just kind of swing that out of the way. Next, you will have to take this out. So there are 2 bolt screws right there and right there. So along with the 2 screws up top, you'll have this one down here, right next to the air conditioning bracket, right there. And after you pull those, this should just clip out. Okay, so for me, I had the hazard right here. There's just a small tab on the side that pressed really easily. The one I had the hardest time with was the rear diff lock one, because the tab is just a lot smaller. It's just that little tiny thing. So what I did is, you can see right here on the actual diff lock switch, there's that little opening right there. I just took my plastic trim tool here and I just shoved it down into that slot. If I can get it to, there you go. Shoved it down into that slot to pull that. And then the ECT was easy, just a little tab. And then this one for the dimmer switch was also just an easy little push tab. So once you get all those pulled, then the rest of it just pops out. Now next, we're just going to take this cluster completely out and probably take it inside so that we can set the gauges inside. You have this screw there, one up here, and one there, and one right there. So there's 4 total. So after you get those pulled, we'll pull it out and we'll have to undo the connections. Okay, so now that we have the cluster, you're just going to have some clips right here on the back, just like that. A white one, blue one, and then there's a brown one over on that side. So you unclip those, your cluster comes right out. Okay, so now that we have the cluster inside, there will be these little black tabs across all of these that we just have to kind of slowly press those out. So when going through and taking the actual lens cover off, I found it easiest to do the ones on the bottom first, and then to turn and to use like the leverage of pulling the lens off to get these top 4. But it came out pretty easy. You will have this little rubber piece that goes right there that may pop off like mine did. But so now that this is off, we can now work on getting our gauges installed into the cluster. Okay, so I have the gauges laid out here on the table. You'll notice that you have 2 of this left side. So you have 2 of these. You have to pay attention to which one you have. So since mine is like the oil temp there, I'm going to want to use this one. If you don't have any of those, then you can go ahead and use this one. But you want to kind of match it up for whichever one you have here. And I mean, it doesn't matter too much, but you just kind of want to pay attention to where your gauges lie, where the needles are, because you'll want to try to put them back to that same orientation. So to get this corner one out, you can see there's 2, let me try to brighten this up. There will be 2 small little screws right there and one right there on this needle retainer you'll want to pull out. So I just have this little Phillips screwdriver. And you got to make sure that you do not lose those. So there's the little retainer. It just sits and then it stops the needle from going up too high or too low. So now you just kind of grab the gauge that you want. There's 4 holes on there and 2, so there's going to be 2 like little pins that stick up inside here that you'll want to get those to set over. So I would just recommend taking your time, not forcing it, but just working it until you can get it in there. You're not actually removing the old gauges, you're just putting these new ones on top of the old ones. And you can kind of bend this connector just a bit to get that to sit in there better. So you don't have to try to get these perfectly lined up just yet. We'll probably go back to the truck, plug them in, and make sure that they look lined up. But just get them as close as you can, and then we'll throw that pin retainer back on. This RPM gauge, we do have these 2 little screws that you'll take off. Set it aside. So we do want to leave this in. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the needle up and slide the gauge in until we can twist and drop it into place, just like that. And then we'll go ahead and put our 2 screws back in. And don't tighten these down a ton. TEQ Customs did say that if you tighten them too much, that it might be able to like remove the laminate off of the actual gauge cover. So we just want to be able to snug them. Once you get these screws in here and they are set around all the pins, they usually don't move. So we'll do what we can to line these up here, but most likely we'll probably have to do some shifting once they get back in the actual truck where we can line it up with the lights on. So very similar. The speedometer is very similar to the RPM gauge, as we will pull these 2 screws out. This one, since you have the reset here, what I saw was you just kind of slide that, pull the needle over, and then it allows you to kind of rotate the gauge like so, and then it drops into place, and then your needle will go back to where it should be. For this last one over here on this side, it's going to be very, very similar to the first one we did, where we just have these screws in here. Do these match the stripes on my truck on the outside?
Yeah, Dada. Yeah.
Before I put the lens back on, I wanted to make sure that the lights were lined up decently well, and I can say I'm pretty happy with how those are all lined up. So now what we're going to do is trim the little tabs on the cover that we need to and pop it back on, and then we will get to the actual wiring portion so that these gauges glow. So since we are going to run the wires out of this top section here on both sides, there is this little black tab. You just have to kind of trim a little bit off to give room for the wires to go through. So I got the cover back on, snapped in, got my rubber piece for the odometer reset back in, kind of wiped out the inside as best as I could. So since now we have a little bit of gap, I just went ahead and put a little bit of electrical tape over that to kind of seal that gap, to kind of keep stuff out from in there, both sides. Alright, so now that we're back in the truck, you can see we have 4 of these little things. One comes off of each gauge, and then there's a little harness that TEQ provides that has 4 plugs and will need to be tapped into the OEM dimmer switch wires, which are this plug right here. So we have put the included splices onto these wires. They're super easy. You just slide them in, click them. So now we are going to be putting them onto the wires here, onto the OEM dimmer switch. So there's this white wire with a black stripe, and that is the ground that the black will attach to. And then there's this green wire with a red stripe that is your power, and the red one will attach to that one. Alright, so now I have those spliced on right there. I've run the wire up behind here. The little box that comes with is right there. And then I've ran the 4 connection pins back behind there so that they're kind of tucked out of the way. And then the other little knob thing is just floating down there for now, but we'll tie that up. So now we have the gauge cluster back over, and we have the 4 connectors connected. It does not matter which connector goes into which one. You can just plug them into any of them. I just started with the one that was closest and went all the way to the one that was further over here. So now we are good to put this back together. And there we are, everything is back together. I think they look super rad. Here's a few different angles. That's them on. This is the blue setting. I think it looks the most white. I'm really happy with it. I have the brightness turned all the way up, and it's not overbearing to the point where like at night it would be in your eyes. But overall, I think they look killer. TEQ Customs did an amazing job with these. And there it is from that side. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you do like these kind of videos, go ahead and hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe so you can stay tuned for future videos, because I got some good ones on the way. So thanks, and we'll see you in the next video.